It's great to be a Hall of Famer, but will Travis Kelce get back to form? Yes, he will. Coming up today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back to Locked On Chiefs, your team every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen. Go check out another listen on this network for your next one, because there is contact and stuff going on all over the league. We have it all for you all the time, every day, just like our everydayers. We appreciate you guys. You're our everyday listeners, and we couldn't do it without you. You are subscribed. You're probably watching and listening in on audio. We appreciate you. And if you want on the text line, that is the next step forward to get with those locos. It is at 816-357-8781. Get over there. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, NFL33.com, and RGR Football, along with my partner, Chris Clark from KC Chiefs Corner. You can find us there. We've been doing this for a super long time. I think overall this is going to be my 14th training camp covering this team in one form or another. We've been doing this show going on our 9th season here. So thank you for being with us. If you're new, we're going to give you the truth from as many angles as we can get every single day. We're going to start today with the run for the roster for the tight end group. Who can push? There's a lot of question marks at the bottom end of what could be a 3 or 4 man unit. Before that, who the core contributors are. What do we know is going to be a steady dose for the tight ends? And we start at the top where it belongs. Will Travis Kelce get back to his former form? And I am here to say, yes, it is all afterburner right now. There is nothing left. There's no contract after this. There is nothing. He has more business ventures than I can even list. And everything that I see from both his appearances, his podcast itself, he can see that this is close to the end. Could they drag him back for one more season after this? I think it's possible, but it depends on how this season goes. And I think if he truly is lighter like he appears and dedicated like he appears and understands just what this season could be for the legend that is Travis Kelce, I think he will be back to form. How do you feel?
I think he can be. It's just a question of whether or not it was really father time or it was just not being in the shape that he wished he was in last season. And that's really the big question. And we won't really know. I don't even know that we'll know in training camp. We may not know until really the regular season starts, when he's out there on the field and we see whether or not he can separate like he used to be able to do. But the reality of his game, and this kind of goes back to what we kind of talked about with Nick Bolton in a sense, is it's his instincts that really make him the best tight end in football. It's always been his instincts. It's always been the way he's been able to read the defense and be able to know what's going on the field with everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's not necessarily his speed, while it is good, and it wasn't for Nick Bolton, but Travis Kelce's speed was good. Whether or not it's still good is going to be the question, but his instincts make him one of the best to ever play the game.
Yeah, and I think you get examples of that. Top end speed is not his thing. It's the ability to make differential movements. And he tried to explain it. And if you've seen his latest podcast, he goes into a little bit about his oratory down at tight end U. There's more that he could have done there. I don't think that was his best performance. But when he talks about lowering his center of gravity so that he can go slow in order to go fast out of the cut, his kind of loping maneuver that we've always seen with the long strides that then he just starts to pull away from people, that's still him. And whether he's quite as young as he used to be or not, I don't think that type of route running changes. I do think if he's lighter, it allows him to lower his center of gravity and explode out of those cuts better. Even though he didn't do a very good job explaining it at tight end U, I do think that it's consistent, and a lighter overall mass that he has to change direction of will be beneficial. And with a full core of complementary pieces to throw the ball to, I think he can get back to his normal 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns, 8 touchdowns, whatever it is.
Man, that's rich. I don't know that I would go that far. I think he gets to 700, 800 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns, maybe more. Depends on really how the offense is running, because that's what it's going to come down to, and whether or not Andy Reid is running up the score, or if he's allowing teams to stay close. But the reality is I think Kelce is still one of the best tight ends in football, and he's still one of the best to ever play the position. I don't think that has gone away. I think it's a matter of, are his legs where they were 2 or 3 years ago, or are they close to where they were 2 or 3 years ago? Because while he doesn't absolutely need the speed that he used to have, he still needs some of it to be able to do some of the things that has made him so great on the field. Getting open is one thing. It's the yak that is going to be the question mark for me, and separates him, or has separated him at times at the tight end position.
Well, I think he's got an ace up his sleeve. He's been laying the groundwork for the last couple of seasons. I think there will be at least one, if not 3-ish plays where he doubles his yak because of his threat to pitch the ball. He's going to get some safety flat-footed, knowing that he's trying to do it, and he will be able to cut off of that. And I think he will have a couple of explosive plays simply because he will fake some dudes out in the secondary that don't think he will pitch that ball.
I hate asking this right now since we're talking about him playing the actual tight end position, but do you think Reid has him throw a pass, considering this might be his last year?
For the love of God, I hope not. But I think it might be a possibility.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I mean, you watch what they were able to do last year on offense, and it all pretty much ran through Travis Kelce because they didn't have anybody else at the wide receiver position to be able to do what they wanted to do on the field. And that in itself could help Travis Kelce. If you get a guy like Rashee Rice back and he's 100% healthy, if you get a guy like Hollywood Brown and he can stay healthy most of the season, and then you have the growth of Xavier Worthy, and you have a Juju Smith-Schuster, and you have maybe a Jalen Royals as well. All of that can help Travis Kelce on the field and be productive, and be more productive than he was last year when he had a down season, because he was the focal point of the offense last year. He doesn't have to be the focal point this year. And we kind of talked about this in the wide receiver conversation. Kind of feels like forever ago. It was, a week ago? A little over a week ago at this point. When we talked about the wide receivers, the offense is always run through the tight end. Is this the season, knowing that Travis is so close to hanging it up, is this the season where Andy says, okay, I know I've run it through the tight end a lot. Maybe we need to start trying to focus on running it through a wide receiver, because we have a couple of those that are going to be here for at least another year or two, whereas Kelce isn't, and you don't really have, as we've said many times, you don't really have a replacement for him. You're not going to have a replacement for him. It's really hard to run that type of offense through a tight end that doesn't have the dynamics or close to the dynamics of Kelce.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. And I do think that this is the time, with everything leading in this direction, for Rashee Rice to emerge. I do think he should be the first option. And as the offense evolves a little bit back towards deeper balls, going to the wide receivers first, and having, honestly, bit player sounds negative, but having more targets, secondary receivers, to then take up a little of that slack too, I think it opens the whole thing up for Travis. And in the end, I think he reaps the benefits, and we do see him return closer to where he normally is. Will it be 100%? I can't say that. He's going to have a little bit of help. He's going to have some guys that are going to contribute along with him, give him a little bit of relief. Who are they, and who has to step up in that role next? This is easy. Summer sports, they're in full swing, and when you're ready to get under those baseball lights, golf on the green, or take on that high-stakes soccer action, is that a thing? FanDuel's the best way to do it, no matter what. Even if you are the other football fan, it can make it that much more exciting. You're already in the flow of the action. Why not make it more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get into it right away. During it, while you're getting sunburned on the beach, you can be in the action. I've been using FanDuel forever to track my favorite matchups, keep it fresh with new daily promotions. They're fun ways to bet. There's fun ways to get into new sports, different sports, and things that you love already. Right now, if you're new to FanDuel, you're in the business, because new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. Open up the FanDuel app today and get over there at FanDuel.com to get started. And make sure you like and sub and get with the rest of our folks here on the Locked On Podcast Network, because it is your team every day on every team all the way. And we have some special things coming for you, including the top 100 as voted by our hosts as we set it up. So be ready for that as well. We have to talk about maybe guys that aren't candidates for that 100, because Travis certainly is. Beyond that, I wouldn't say that there are any other contributors at this position that earn that right. But they earn the right to be on the field. They earn the right to get targeted. And I think we saw a little bit of a swell last season. And I think it needs to continue, particularly for Noah Gray, who could be, I think, maybe on the verge of emergence. They're going to try to carry that through if and when Travis retires. But what do you see for him this season?
I think it has to be an expansion of what we saw last season and what you did see last season at times. And obviously, it wasn't every single game and it wasn't on a regular basis enough. But what you saw was Mahomes trust him. He will find Noah Gray and trust that he will be where he's supposed to be, one, and two, will do what he needs to do to catch the ball, and he'll make throws that I don't think that he would make to some other players. And I saw that last year at times. It wasn't a ton of them, but there were 3 or 4 or 5 throws where he threw to Noah Gray, and you're sitting there going, okay, well, he trusts Gray. It's obvious he trusts Gray. He's putting in a position where Gray has to make a play on the ball, and he trusts that he's going to come down with it and take care of it. And that's important. And I agree with you. No, Gray isn't going to be Travis Kelce. We know that. That's fine. He doesn't have to be. He just needs to be a guy that can come out there and give you something that can kind of complement what Travis does at times, and also do a little bit of something different from what Travis does as well. And I do think that he has the ability to do that. He has the ability to be effective on this team. And the real question I have isn't necessarily Noah Gray. It's who's going to be on the roster beyond Noah Gray, because the reality is what Kansas City has done in the past, and this kind of goes back to what I said with the Kelce conversation, with running the offense through the tight end. That go back, they had several plays, not necessarily last year, but the year before, where they ran 3 tight end sets. Is that going to be a thing that they're going to be doing this year? And it matters who's going to be on the roster, whether or not they're going to be able to do that, because you have to be able to have the tight ends that can run the different roles to be able to do that. And that's something that most teams aren't going to be able to guard very well. So I do like what Gray brings to the field. And to me, it's a question, okay, who's going to be tight end 3? Because I don't think Wiley is going to be ready for the beginning of the year.
Well, and that's an interesting conversation. We're going to talk about who's trying to get on the roster coming up in a little bit. But Wiley is the next topic for somebody who should be a core contributor. Now, that's all based on health. But they made a significant investment in him. That draft pick counts. And I know people don't want to say that because you were a draft pick in the top 100 or 123 or whatever it was, that you automatically get a spot. And that should be true. This is a meritocracy. You should earn your way onto the roster. But I think given the injury and knowing that he had potential, I think that basically buys him some leeway. If he's on the pup, it makes the 53 decision different. If he's NFI, which I don't see how he could be, but that's fine. It makes things different. But I think as you go through the course of the season, there is a point in which he should be able to return. And I do think if that's possible, then he is probably, if healthy, the most likely candidate to be the guy that then comes in those 3 tight end sets if they use them. Might not be initially, might be later in the season, but that should be the goal and I think the hope in order to get him to that point, because everybody else beyond that we're going to talk about coming up has some kind of obstacle to overcome. Whereas Wiley knows they liked what they saw. They scouted him. He gave them a couple of looks last season before the injury. And I think it really is about his health as the only determining factor, whether he is part of that core contributor group or not.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you. The question I have is he going to be available for training camp at all, or is he going to start the season on the PUP list? And I think that's the big question right now. As it sits right now, from everything I've heard, it sounds like they're figuring that he's going to be somebody they're going to be adding in October, which means he'll start the year on the PUP list, which is fine. Mm-hmm. You want him to be healthy. You want him to be 100%. You don't want to rush him back and potentially lose another year with him. So that kind of changes the math a little bit, because at that point, then you're talking about a 4th tight end potentially being on the roster, so to speak, because you're not going to have only 2 tight ends on the active roster. You're going to have 3, and Wiley would be the 4th on the PUP list. And I know we'll talk about all those guys in a minute, but my point is, when you sit here and you look at the Wiley situation, it's going to play into what are they going to be doing in training camp, because I think if he was going to be healthy, or they thought he was going to be healthy, maybe they'd be putting in some different plays. Maybe they'd be planning for a couple of things differently. And I'm not saying that he's so great they're going to make plays specifically for him, but he does change what they're able to do at the tight end position with the 3 tight end sets, if he is able to go at some point this season, and if they think he can go early, then maybe they are working on some stuff in training camp. I would like to say I'm hopeful he's ready for training camp at some point, but I don't think that's what I've been understanding from everything I've seen.
It feels to me like Wiley in particular, but the triple tight end formations in general are going to be more reliant on the wide receiver group than the tight end group. Because if you have it cooking with the wide receivers, I think the 3x1s come back in. I think you get a little bit more creative with how you deploy the wide receivers. And that doesn't really leave as much, I think, for trying to push the 3 tight end look.
I agree with that. The one caveat I would say is that if the Chiefs get up early in a game, I would not be surprised to see them go to a 3 tight end heavy set for the second half, trying to run the ball more and trying to make it look like they're having the threat of running the ball more if they have the ability to do so.
Well, a normal coach would, Andy.
Yeah.
Just
well,
saying.
The problem is to me that goes almost in the face of what I don't want them to do because it goes too conservative at times as well. And that's part of the problem. Reid will come out and not go back to what's been working in the first half. And obviously, I'm not saying you got to run the exact same plays, but run similar plays off those plays because I know you have different variations. His binder of plays is huge.
Yeah.
I don't even want to imagine.
It's about running the ball well. You know, like if you're running the ball well, then you don't have to worry about it. Going away from that, if you're able to execute, you should be in good shape. It's when you don't practice enough and you're not getting anything beyond a 3-yard carry out of an offense. That's when things become troublesome. And that's when you have to get a little bit more creative. And maybe that means bringing in other tight ends. There are guys that will push for this roster. I know one must make it, or I am going to raise all kinds of static, we'll call it, with this coaching staff. Jay Brittingstool has the potential to be elite in this offense. He has to make it. Who else does next? Now, if you want to jump right on that, if you disagree, go ahead, because I'm pretty adamant about it.
I want to see training camp and I want to see preseason. I think coming out of college, I agree. I think that he should have been drafted and he should be a guy that could make this roster. The problem is you get into a numbers crunch, and if Wiley is on this roster, I don't know about Brittingstool. I don't know that you can keep 4 tight ends this year.
Yeah.
If Wiley isn't on the roster, it makes it a lot easier. But the problem that you have, and this goes back to 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, why did they always have Blake Bell on the roster? They had Blake Bell on the roster because he could block. Mm-hmm. They had specific things that they were doing with their tight ends. Travis obviously can do a little bit of everything, but he was, they looked at him as more of a wide receiver type. Noah Gray kind of the same way, but not really a blocker. But you have Blake Bell on, you can bring him in, you can have a tight end in there to block. If you have Brittingstool on the roster, I don't think you have that anymore. Is Andy Reid going to be okay with that? And that actually might work to your advantage because that could actually lead them to maybe feeling like they have to keep Carson Steele as a guy that can line up just off the line.
Yeah. I like that role for him too. The H is something that I think he can definitely pull off. There are other options in who's going to push for it. Well, unfortunately, one will not be included, and that's Baylor Cupp because he's not currently available to this team. I don't know if that changes. I hope that it does because I do see potential there. But the big ones here that we have to talk about are Brittingstool, the rookie, and I know it's a lighter volume of work there. They brought back Spivey. He's going to be competing. He knows a good bit about this offense. Trey Watson has some folks pretty excited. But I think the dark horse that is intriguing to me, but yet I have serious concerns about is Robert Tonyan, who in OTAs, they took time to actually feed the ball to get a feel for what he's actually capable of right now. He may be able to run the offense. I agree with that. He may be able to be in the right place and make those grabs. What he isn't able to do is scare any defense anywhere at any time. And that's my problem with him being on this roster.
Problem is I don't know that they have much of a choice other than Stool. So if they feel like Tonyan's their guy and they want to go with more of a vet, they could go that direction, and then Stool's the odd man out. And the reality is that based on the fact that he wasn't drafted, unless he does something to blow up in the preseason, which I don't see happening, if Kansas City knows that they're worried about losing him, I don't think they'll be playing him early on. He could be a practice squad guy, but I honestly think Tonyan's more likely to be a practice squad guy and the type of guy that the Chiefs want on the practice squad at that tight end position, because he's a veteran, and whether or not he can actually run, whether or not he can scare anybody isn't necessarily what you need. You need a veteran that can come in and come up for a game if somebody gets injured and just spot duty type things as your tight end. That's exactly the type of player that they need, and I could see Tonyan filling that role. I don't know that I see him on the roster, especially if Wiley makes the active roster, which I still don't think is going to happen. But it's probably going to be between him and Stool unless somebody shows out in training camp, which is always possible, but that's going to be a tough position to do it.
Well, as we said about the wide receivers too, like you have to be able to pull some interest away from Travis Kelce. I think Rasheed will do that. I think the other receivers will do that. I think Noah Gray probably doesn't do that. But if I was going to pick one of these last four, Stool is easily the guy that I think athletically poses the most threat to a defense. And while Spivey knows the offense and Tonyan is reliable, I can understand that. I just don't think it ups or is a viable replacement, because if Travis Kelce misses a game, Noah becomes the one. I don't think there's any question of that. The question is, can you get production out of the two? And I would rather take the chance on the more interior wide receiver type Stool than going back to the vet Tonyan.
And that makes sense. I guess I'm just looking at it from the aspect of you try to do plug and play as much as you possibly can. The one thing that I will say when you start looking at the tight end position, and this kind of goes back to also wide receivers to an extent as well. If you have an injury to Travis Kelce, obviously Gray is going to elevate to number one. I almost am of the opinion that if the Chiefs wide receivers stay healthy enough this year, which is obviously a big question, I don't know that you will see them use two tight ends if Travis Kelce or Noah Gray get hurt very often. I mean, the way that they went about building the roster last year, they had a guy on the roster the entire season that didn't play. Didn't play until backup roles in Ethan Driscoll. And it makes me wonder, is that something that they're willing to try to do at another position like tight end? Because the reality is that if they don't think Stool is capable of doing some of the smaller things like blocking, I'm not saying, be a awesome blocker, but just blocking enough and doing those small things at the NFL level, they may not have a choice but to keep him on the bench. And then you're down to two tight ends if you are going to keep him on the roster.
Yeah, it makes things difficult that way. In the end, bottom line, I do see them needing to take 4 to the 53. How do you feel?
I wish I could think that they could take 4 to the 53. I can't see them taking 4. If they take 4, they're only going to have 4 running backs. There's no way they can keep 5. So that's going to be a problem, and it's all going to come down to special teams. And the other question that it comes down to when you start looking at this is tight ends aren't necessarily core special teamers. To an extent, they do play some special teams. So a question is, can Stool step in and be a special teamer that is going to help? Or do they think that Tonyan can be that guy? Because that could give him a leg up over Stool. And I do think that as long as Stool doesn't go out and do something during the preseason, it's possible they could get him on the practice squad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's got to be the preferred choice to have that ability to pull up. Practice squad will play an absolute role in this season, particularly at this position. Who do you guys think makes it? How many tight ends do they keep? Put your comments down below here on YouTube and hit us on any of our handles on X. We would appreciate that. Make sure you like and sub and hit the bell. We've had a good week so far, more to come, and we are still currently on Trey Smith watch. If anything drops, you'll hear it on the text line. You'll see it here on the channel, and you will hear it in our audio. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate you guys. You everydayers, make sure you spread the word and get us out to the world. Have a good one. We'll talk to you tomorrow.